Hey guys, what's up? It is week 282, and you know what? This is being recorded Thursday this week, and tomorrow I'll be at Cinema Wasteland. Hopefully I'll have this up for patrons, but it will go live next Wednesday. So my Wasteland stuff will not be in here. To be honest, I had to cut back on Wasteland because I am actually going to try to save some money for the October. I'm at the Vinegar Syndrome, yearly thing in November. So I definitely want to do that. That subscription has always been, it's just amazing to do. So I guess, money's tight. Rather spend it on subscription, buy a couple things here and there at Cinema Wasteland. I'm sure it was a blast. But anyways, just let you guys know, 1980, these are the last three I'll probably cover. There's still going to be some like 1980 in horror ones coming up. There's going to be 4 of them. Hell of the Living Dead, which probably will post before this video, with James L. Edwards, Troy Howarth on Eaten Alive, which is really cool, Bruce Holchek on Cannibal Apocalypse, and last, Dave Z from the Exploding Heads podcast on The Shining. So those are the last 4 ones. Some of the heavy hitters that I consider heavy hitters, ones I loved and watched on here before, at least 3 of those, 3 of the 4. Won't tell you which one I just kind of like. Not just kind of, but just like. So yeah, I guess the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of massive, and the only problem I have with covering these box sets in like a bulk thing like this is sometimes I feel like each individual film does not get it's just, it's justice. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about it from the Gothic Fantastico, 4 Italian Tales of Terror. And so the first one up is, these are all black and white, 60s Italian Gothic films, some of which have a lot of name recognition, but this first one I feel is like semi kind of a lost film. This director also did The Bloody Pit of Terror and Terror Creatures from the Grave, which I've actually not had a chance to see. Bloody Pit of Terror, I think Severin put out recently, but this is Lady Morgan's Vengeance. And this one is super, super gothic. They're all very gothic. It looks gorgeous. And like I said, Arrow did a great job on the remaster on this one. I had never seen it. I did not know much about it. Erica Blanca's in it. She's in a slew of these kind of Italian movies. But also I noticed Paul Mueller. And Paul Mueller is a guy I know mostly from stuff like Jess Franco. From 1970, he was in like 4 or 5 of the Jess Franco movies that Franco made in 1970. He's like in all of them. And most particularly, he played Dr. Seward in Count Dracula. I think that is probably my favorite Jess Franco movie. So this one, the story is very tropey in the kind of typical kind of gothic sense. But it has a great, setting. They all do. That's the one thing about all these movies. You're going to hear me saying a lot of great atmosphere and setting, regardless of if the plots work or don't for me. And most of them work to a certain extent, but sometimes they become somewhat repetitive. That's just how these gothic films can be at times, although I love them. So like, if anybody's not really familiar with any older gothic films, like the one that I feel like lifts from this one the most is something like Crimson Peak, where we have like the marriage and the setup marriage and people not trusting and murder and all that kind of stuff, but also a ghost story. So also this would directly be compared to something like Mario Bava's The Whip and the Body, which I do see the comparisons here, which is also, a murder story about gothic stuff and, people inheriting, but also a ghost story at the same time. So Lady Morgan's Vengeance. Okay, so we initially have Paul Mueller, who is kind of courting this young woman who's a rich father, of course, and everything like that. But she has her eyes set on someone else. This guy suffers from a poor accident, and he's kind of lost at sea. No one really knows what happens. So she kind of eventually marries Paul Mueller. But, kind of horrible things start to happen, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of things like that, and somebody ends up dead. So this old guy, the old flame, shows up, remembering exactly what happens, and he enters this castle. And he enters the castle with a lot of, mischievous characters that you don't really trust, obviously. And he starts to get clues on what's happening. And eventually it leads him to understand what happened. And I think that this one is really cool and unique in the fact that a lot of these gaslighting stories, or people tricking other people, there's always like a twist at the end where it's not actually a ghost or it's not actually something like this. There is a true supernatural angle to this one. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, I would rank this as third of the 4 movies from the set. This is my third favorite. The last 2 in the set are doozies. They're really good and really strong films. So yeah, as far as, being lost, I thought it was very unique to see it, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, like I said, they do kind of bleed together at times, so bear with me. So as far as the special features are concerned, we have a brand new video introduction by Italian film devotee Mark Thomas Ashworth, and he does an introduction on all 4. They're very informative. Brand new audio commentary by author and critic Alexander Hender Nicholas, and she's amazing. Like, I've seen her on other stuff, but I was very impressed with what she had to say on this one too. And these are perfect. brand new video essay on film and author producer Kat Ellinger, who's also amazing. She has a documentary coming out this year, hopefully by about Jean Roland, which is a kind of a director that's not real. He's known by horror fans, but he's not talked about as much as he should be, and he's very prolific. Then we also have brand new interview with actress Erica Blanc, newly edited video interview with actor Paul Mueller, newly edited audio interview with director Massimo Pupolito. The complete original Cinema Manzo, published in Suspense in April 1971. And we also have Reversible Sleeve here by Colin Murdoch. So, like I said, this one is interesting to a certain point, and I did enjoy myself with it. But like it ranks as third. But like I like the Gothic stories, but I like kind of like when we start to get into a more perverse area and stuff like that, like Whipping the Body and the latter two films in here, the Third Eye and the Witch, I think, are some really strong stuff here. But yeah, Lady Morgan's Vengeance, good stuff, interesting, and it's lost, so that adds a point. As far as the remaster is concerned, it looks gorgeous. So if you're a fan of the film, because I know there was probably some crummy releases out there, bootlegs and stuff. If you're a fan of the film, this is the release to go for. Okay, the next one up in the set is the Blancheville Monster, aka Horror. And there's like tons of titles called Horror. There's a Dante Tomaselli movie called Horror. This is not it. This is the Blancheville Monster. And yeah, this one is truly a Gothic story here for sure. Like I could have said that every time. So this is actually by a director called Alberto Del Martino, who I think may be the most prolific in the horror genre amongst any of these guys in this set. Now I'll get to all the last, and I'll forget the one director is like super prolific. But I've seen a handful of his movies, maybe like half a dozen, including The Killers on the Phone, the Telly Savalas picture, Miami Golem with David Warbeck, but he also did Antichrist, which is probably his most popular film from '74, the Exorcist ripoff, and he did the kind of the Omen kind of ripoff with Kirk Douglas, Chosen 2000. What is it? It's kind of a Reign of Fire. It's a pretty good film as well. So Alberto Del Martino he's a solid director. He also did Pumbaa Man, which I know there are probably fans of. I've never actually seen Pumbaa Man. Come on, Arrow, I want to see Pumbaa Man. I want to see Donald Pleasance in spandex. But the Blancheville Monster. So, again, we have a story where this young girl returns home, and, her family's very strange. She disappeared for years, and it's approaching her 21st birthday. Now, this family believes in this strange curse, which I believe is kind of similar to The Seven Deaths of the Cat's Eyes by Antonio Margheriti. I believe that family is some kind of a strange curse as well, if I'm not mistaken. That's a very typical thing. Her brother's name in the movie is Roderick. Right away, you're like, okay, Roderick Usher. You're thinking Poe. You're thinking all these kind of things here. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to mix up the special features on here. I think the Kat Ellinger special feature, the video essay, was kind of the brilliant one where it mixes like Amicus, talks about Amicus and Mario Bava kind of being the Corman Poe cycle, and Mario Bava kind of being the main inspiration for tons of these kind of pictures to be made in Italy like that too, so which I think is more so, and I think is really cool too. So yeah, you could definitely see it in here. You definitely see Poe. You definitely see the murder mystery here. To me, this movie is really well shot. It has great atmosphere, and that keeps you going till the very end. And there's a couple twists and turns and everything like that, but it's not exactly the most unpredictable movie. It's not the most, amazingly, interesting film either. I feel like we've seen this kind of story before, and it's decent. Like, I like it. I don't love it. I would recommend checking it out, especially because the director behind it has a nice resume of horror films, different types of horror films as well. A lot of kind of like cash-ins and rip-offs, yet they still stand out on their own to be good films, which is kind of rare. But this one, it has its moments, and the disfigured father in the film is pretty cool because she comes back and she's worried about the 21-year-old curse. No females ever live past 21, and like the father, the patriarch of the family is running around. He's been disfigured and he's all deformed and he's running around and people are ending up murdered. But of course, there's going to be some twists and turns and stuff with discoveries of some certain bodies. Anyways, I thought this one was I'm going to rank it 4. I don't know why I'm ranking them and decided to rank them, but that's just the way it's going to be. This is probably my least of the 4. Again, it looks fantastic. A lot of Arrow handles their remasters, and then especially in like black and white stuff, it always looks fantastic. So here we go. Here, a brand new video introduction again by Mark Thomas Ashworth. Brand new video audio commentary by filmmaker and film historian Paul Anthony Nelson. Brand new video essay and film writer and pop culture historian Keith Allison. Brand new video interview with author and filmmaker Antonio Tettori. See, now the one thing here is they in fact in the special features they mentioned this may not be the most exciting of the Gothic films, yet it still carries a certain interest, and I would agree with that. That's the Blancheville Monster, aka Horror, which, and honestly, I've been waiting for a good release of this movie for a long time before I watched it, so it's nice to finally put that off the checklist, right? Okay, the next one up. Boy, oh boy, was I impressed with this one. And this is The Third Eye. Now, this is right up my alley. This is, gothic, but it has a psychological aspect to it, right? It's heavily inspired by Psycho. And if anybody can tell me who that is on the very front right there, that is Franco Nero in this kind of movie. Now, Franco Nero, like the same year or a year later, 66, would go on to be in Django by Sergio Corbucci, and his life would change, right? He's in, you see Franco Nero for me. I think of him from the Eurocrime movies, from the spaghetti westerns, from even latter-day stuff popping up in cameos or Force 10 the Never. You think of Franco Nero Die Hard 2 as a different kind of, a tough guy almost. Or, that kind of cool, suave action kind of guy, silent, kind of a Clint Eastwood type. So, when I saw him in this movie, like, he plays this Norman Bates type character who's obsessed with taxidermy right away. He has a domineering mother. He's getting ready to marry this woman, and the mother will not have it. She does not like her. And on top of that, the maid of the family is obsessed with poor Mino. And the writer, I think the director of the movie's name, the writer-director is named Mino too. So that's like, it seems very personal, to be honest. So she's obsessed, the mother's obsessed with Mino. The obviously the fiance loves Mino. And then we have the housekeeper who's obsessed with Mino. So this is not going to end well. Although he is handsome and nervous and weird, he does taxidermy. So it's like strange. The mother really wants nothing, doesn't want Mino to have this too. And the maid's going to get in between them and make that matters worse. Now, you may be thinking, weird kid with a Norman Bates kind of complex and a maid that's obsessed with the son, yada, yada, yada. You're going to think this sounds like another movie, and it absolutely does. This is kind of like there was an unofficial or maybe semi-official remake in 1979 by legendary, director Joe D'Amato in Beyond the Darkness, or Blue Omega, is how you maybe say it in Italian, which is not right. But I absolutely love that movie. It's a gritty, nasty, dirty movie that makes me gag. And has an amazing music. This is like the classy version of Beyond the Darkness, which is very cool that there is a classy version of Beyond the Darkness starring fucking Franco Nero of all people. So, yeah, anyways, what happens is tragedy strikes and he loses his mother in, Ed Gein fashion and his fiance in the same day. And the maid starts to move in on him, and they start to make an unhealthy deal where he has these sexual hang-ups, and he's obsessed with embalming. So use some pieces here, what's going to happen. And eventually, somebody shows up related to his fiance that he's going to have develop feelings for. It's a really wild and crazy movie, and the way that it ends was really kind of unique with the way the police officer handled it. I didn't expect that, and it's actually kind of refreshing when you compare it to stuff like Psycho. Like, I mean, not that Psycho, I'm not trying to say this is better than Psycho, but because everybody always laughs at the ending with Simon Oakland's like, whoa, actually, what? It's just weird, like how the psychology is used from the cop. I'm like, that's kind of cool and different. And nowadays, probably a cop wouldn't do that for you. But hey, it is what it is. Yeah, Franco Nero's fantastic in it. Everybody's really solid in it, and just like genuinely, it's really interesting to see this movie. And like, this is the kind of gem that you would look for. Just the puzzle piece here. This is a puzzle piece. I always talk about this in horror movies. Like, you have that big wall of pieces, of puzzles, and like you're like, oh, you got to fill it in. And this is just one that I didn't know was missing, and it was. It's just interesting enough, and way a different time, and just that kind of heavily inspired by Psycho, psychological, gothic, weird, perverse. Much more perverse than the other ones. Maybe the latter one has it too, but yeah. Anyways, good stuff. The third eye. As far as the special features are concerned, again, we have an introduction by MTA. It's his new name now. Brand new audio commentary by author and critic Rachel Nisbet. Brand new video essay, one time by author and filmmaker Lindsay Hullum. And newly edited video interview with actors Eric Blanc. Again, popping up in these special features. So yeah, this is definitely tied for the first place. I'll give it a tie. I think that this and the other one are a tie because they're so much, different, but yet great at the same time. Okay, and the final one from the Gothic set is going to be The Witch. And so I started this bad boy. I didn't know much about it. I knew the name in passing. And I'm like 10 minutes in, and I'm looking, man, that guy looks a lot like Richard Johnson. And, I know Richard Johnson from his latter days, Zombie, and, how could I ever forget Dr. Menard? I've seen Zombie 50 times. So I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like, that is Richard Johnson. He looks young and he's handsome, and I was just like, this is so freaking cool. So yeah, this is a really kind of way ahead of its time. I could see people saying this is kind of like a feminist horror film here, although maybe the ending changes that a little bit, to be honest. But a really cool, unique witch story, right? So we have this chauvinistic. He's a little older. He's like probably approaching middle-aged guy. He's probably middle-aged. So he sleeps around with a lot of women. He doesn't ever have any, he's not faithful to any of them. He goes for all of them. And he starts to notice this kind of this woman watching, and this older woman out, and outside, and he starts to get hung up on it, and eventually he follows her to a place, and he wonders. She goes to a newspaper stand. He starts to talk to her, and he realizes that she put an ad out, and this ad, everything about the ad, he's like, I'm the only person that ad is called for. He does this library work. He's just the perfect guy for the ad, and he's like, she's doing it on purpose. So he ends up going there. And he meets her, and at first he doesn't seem very interested to be the librarian to sort her late husband's memoirs. It's just not his thing. He's like, nah, this is weird. I don't want to do it. But he's still talkative because he's trying to find a price. But then he meets her young daughter, who's there. And being the guy he is, he becomes completely infatuated with them. And they start to lure him and tell him that the old librarian is going to be fired. And the old librarian is played by Maria Volante, who's in great stuff like A Citizen Above Suspicion, For a Few Dollars More, and Fistful of Dollars. Yes, we're talking about the guy with the fucking stopwatch in For a Few Dollars More and Citizen Above Suspicion. He's a great actor. I've heard people say he's like Italy's like one of his best actors, if not the best. He's just one of the best, right? And he is this like haggard librarian. And as the story starts to unfold, it becomes this warped, fucked up love triangle kind of between Volante and Richard Johnson and the young woman here. But it's more complicated than that. There's a duality among women and women in general, and they really tackle that really well. Way ahead of its time, way more intelligent than you would expect. And I don't mean that Gothic films aren't intelligent because we have Whip in the Body. We have lots of great Gothic films that are highly intelligent, but this has way more going for it. And in fact, when you sit to talk about it, you're just like, yeah, this is actually really fucking interesting. This is really different. This is really weird, and it's really well acted and shot and looks gorgeous, and it's just creepy, and it's good. It's a good witch story. It's quite good, to be honest. Is it better than The Third Eye? I put them kind of on the same level, but it might have the edge. It might have a little bit of an edge. So, as far as the special features are concerned, we have Mark Thomas Ashworth, brand new audio commentary by author and producer Kat Ellinger, who's one of my favorite people to hear, especially on something like this. She's perfect for it. Brand new video essay on film by film author academic Miranda Corcoran. I'm sorry. Corcoran. That's a bad name for me to say. Brand new video interview with author and filmmaker Antonio Tittori. So yeah, and we got the reversible art by Colin Murdoch as well. Now I should mention this book here and the poster because there's a lot of contributors on here as well. Tons of stuff. And we have Roberto Curti, Rob Talbot, Jerome Reuter, who always posts a lot of cool things about his movie activities and stuff on Facebook. Rod Barnett and Kimberly Lindsberg on all these different little essays and everything like that. So it's a great set. Again, I can't sing the praises enough when Arrow does these sets. Years of Lead, I loved. Vengeance Trails, I loved. And like, let's put it this way. Like, I love when they do the sets and the combos. Sometimes, like, I don't love everything in them. Like, if we get to these, like, regional directors, there'll be, like, 2 or 3 hidden gems in there, and the rest are very, But they give you a look at the filmmaker's career. They give you a look at a place in history. And some of them are truly great. Like, the Blood Hunger set with the Jose Larraz set, the American Horror Project. These sets are fucking wonderful. And I would put this Gothic set up there too, because there are 4 movies that, like, a couple have reputations. One's kind of lost. One is by a fairly prolific horror director. So I mean, it's a nice set, nice hard box. Recommend. Very cool. In the running for one of my favorite releases of the year. Like, all the movies, they range from like 3 to 4 stars out of 5. Stuff like that. Maybe 2.5 for the Blancheville Monster. But like, as a package, as a whole, it's real cool shit. Okay, this next one, I'm not going to talk about the special features because I didn't get a chance to watch them. But one of my friends was over, and we were talking, and I just put on Day of the Dead because it was the day after. It was like my birthday celebration day after. I was like, well, if you don't want to put in Day of the Dead, my favorite movie, just watch that a little bit. And we're talking about Romero a little bit, and I was like, yeah, Creepshow. He had never seen Creepshow. I was like, it's approaching Halloween season. You've never seen Creepshow. I've never watched my Blu-ray from Scream Factory. And I was like, we got to put in George A. Romero's Creepshow from 1982, the classic. The first or second most popular horror anthology of all time. It's either that or Trick or Treat, which is probably very beloved at this point. But yeah, I'm a Creepshow guy. I absolutely love George Romero. Everybody knows how much I love George Romero. This is actually, it feels very Romero, but it feels a little different. So this is heavily inspired by the EC comics of the 50s. Those were Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear, and Vault of Horror. And these shock suspension stories, these stories would go on to be made into Amicus Pictures in the 70s. Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, From Beyond the Grave, etc., etc. And then eventually, they would have the Tales from the Crypt television series. But George Romero and Stephen King, who is the writer behind this, were heavily inspired to make Creepshow. And it's like a comic book. It's an anthology. 5 stories in a wraparound. Tom Savini does the special effects. We have Michael Gornick, I believe, doing the cinematography. We have John Harrison doing the score. Now, John Harrison, if you listen to his Day of the Dead score, is compared to his Creepshow score, you'll realize how versatile he is and how much he can change it up and how much he can make almost like a score that fits perfectly for a movie and every moment. Like he makes these like motifs and stuff. I know that's how you're supposed to do it, but a lot of people don't. They just play synth music or crazy music and the director. But I feel like John Harrison is like actually scoring every fucking movie. The score in Creepshow, super memorable. So here we go. Right from the wraparound opening story, we have the animation, we have the pumpkin, we have Tommy Atkins beating his kid, played by Joe Hill, Stephen King's real kid. So it's just like, yes, iconic. In the first 5 minutes, we use a real skeleton at the window staring in at the kid as he opens his Creepshow comic and starts looking at his comics got thrown away. He's upset. So we hear all these different stories in the comics. I think we go right to the garbage and we kind of look into it. So the first story is a bizarre one, but you'll recognize right away Ed Harris, who is in the year previously in George Romero's Night Riders, in a very funny role. It's called Father's Day. The short, infamous for his dance, Ed Harris's dance. So we kind of have this weird structure thing where everybody's waiting to get together for Father's Day of a deceased patriarch of a family who is an abusive piece of crap, and the new member of the family who just married in. Here's kind of the backstory of what happened to him and who are they waiting for and all this kind of stuff. While the corpse of the dead, patriarch comes back to life using his telekinetic powers and dismembers everybody and kills them. And he got his cake. Very fun, very classic EC, very, putty zombie walking around. Just great atmosphere, great music, cool stuff. So then we go to the second story here, which is probably the most divisive, and this is the one starring Stephen King himself. What they're growing, I can't remember the name, but Meteor Shit is what we'll call it. You lunkhead. So Stephen King plays an absolutely over-the-top performance. In fact, everybody in this movie is cranked to 11. Stephen King is cranked to 15. So he plays this country kind of bumpkin where a meteor crashes, and he touches it, and this weird growth starts to go on him. And he can't stop it. And we have the funniest flashback of all time. We have multiple flashbacks, all of which are the same actor, which is very unique and fun. And it ends on a super downbeat, kind of just very self-aware of its darkness and funness at the very end. Expect lots of rain with moderate temperatures. Love it. So then we get to the third story, which is my personal favorite story here. I'm just running down the stories and talking about them a little bit because, hey, it's a fucking anthology and I don't know what else to do. As a whole, it's a beautiful movie. I love all 5 shorts in the wraparound. So we get to Something to Tide You Over, which to me has the best cast. We have Leslie fucking Nielsen, Ted Danson, and Galen Ross. Galen Ross, Dawn of the Dead. Everybody knows Ted Danson, Cheers, and Leslie Nielsen. Before, this is after Airplane. Airplane was, 80, I think? But, before he was the kind of, straight-faced comedy guy, Leslie Nielsen did lots of different films, lots of serious roles, the uptight kind of guy. If you ever watch Day of the Animals, he takes on a grizzly bear without his shirt on. Pure cinema. So the thing about Leslie Nielsen in this movie, this is one of my favorite stories. I feel like The Ledge, which Stephen King also wrote, is very similar too. We have this kind of, that's when Kenneth McMillan, the Cat's Eye movie, kind of does the same thing Leslie Nielsen does, but to a lesser crazy extent. So Leslie Nielsen is obsessed with water. He's obsessed with VCRs and technology. He's just a douchebag. He finds out that Ted Danson is currently sleeping with his wife. This upsets him greatly, so he decides to do this awful, awful trick to both of them. Not trick, a murder. And the way it's done is brilliant. The way it's edited is brilliant. But of course, there's going to be just desserts, which is also the name of the feature-length documentary of Creepshow. So what happens is amazing special effects, lots of great one-liners. Leslie Nielsen steals the show. He is over the top. He is crazy. He is ruthless. He has some of the best one-liners ever. I can hold my breath for a long time. It's just a brilliant moment. And Leslie Nielsen's perfect for this role. He's my favorite character in the movie. I don't think anyone else could top Leslie Nielsen in this movie. And do yourself a favor. Now, it does have similarities to the first one, right? There's zombies coming back, but they have a great gurgle. It's showtime. Just endless quotes for this one. And I should mention, a lot of the times when the kind of stingers hit, the colors go crazy, right? Kind of like a comic. It zoom back and you'll see different colors on the left, the right. And you'll change panels, and like you'll say have Leslie Nielsen in blue screaming, you'll have somebody else screaming in red. It's just fucking awesome. All right, it's fucking amazing. So then the fourth story, The Great. Now this is also one of the more popular stories of the bunch and the longest. It has Fritz Weaver. Geez, I can't believe I am forgetting Hull Brick, and why can I not? Adrienne Barbeau, married to John Carpenter at one point. So that's who's in this one. All great. So what happens is Hull Brick is kind of a meek man who is married to Billy, or Wilma. Call me Billy. And she constantly badgers him, and Adrienne Barbeau constantly badgers him. She's a drunk. She just openly flirts with other people, just embarrasses him. He's a college professor, as is his best friend Fritz Weaver. Fritz Weaver is older, but he sleeps with a lot of younger students, so that's not particularly good either. So what happens is one day Fritz Weaver, the janitor, finds a crate from an Antarctic expedition underneath the stairs, and they decide to open it, and what's in it is a fucking Yeti. And Tom Savini absolutely loved doing the design on this. Savini was known for the Sultan of Splatter is what he would refer to himself, or other people would, but Savini liked doing monsters. He liked doing makeup. So when he really took the initiative in this, and he did a fucking great job on I think they call him Furry. What is his name? I can't remember. So they did a great job on the Yeti. He's absolutely terrifying. So when the Yeti starts to attack people, there's splurts of gore, like the teeth marks and the ripping. It's excellent, and the twist is excellent as well. Hull Holbrook is very reserved, but in a very great performance here, and he's really good in it, and his fantasies of dismembering and killing his wife are absolutely brilliant and done very, very hilariously. And then finally we get to the last story. They're Creeping Up on You, with E.G. Marshall from classic films like The Chase, 12 Angry Men, and another Romero movie, Two Evil Eyes. I don't know if they call that classic, but it's a pretty solid movie. A little underrated. So you got E.G. Marshall here, right? Great actor, great. And this feels like possibly slightly futuristic. Remember when there would be a time in the 80s when oh, there's an electrical storm, everything's going down, like Alone in the Dark or Chopping Mall, or hey, it's electrical storm, everything's going crazy. Wasn't Pulse that movie? I've never seen Pulse, but I feel like Pulse is that too. So basically he lives in this high-rise apartment. He's just a ruthless businessman. He's a clean freak. He's like a Howard Hughes, right? He's obsessed with neatness. He hates cockroaches, and he keeps seeing cockroaches all through his apartment for some reason in this super ultra white Stanley Kubrick looking fucking backdrop. So he's completely obsessed with killing these cockroaches, and you see his interactions with the people that work for him. He actually gets a guy to commit suicide because he's so ruthless, and I think it's David Early out there kind of fucking with him a little bit. I know, Mr. Pratt, and it's just hilarious. But E.G. Marshall couldn't be a bigger bastard if he tried. He's hilarious because he's so evil. The lines he says in this film are next level douchebaggery. You better get here soon, or you'll be taking your kids to Disneyland next year on your fucking welfare check. It's just shit. You're just like, oh my god, it's so awful. You can't do anything but laugh, because otherwise you'll cry. But he's tremendous in this movie. And what happens, of course, the roaches keep piling up until a giant Gorgag. Geez, these roaches are so gross. They're big. There's flying ones. Cockroaches are disgusting, especially when you put them on a backdrop of white, especially when you put them inside somebody. So anyways, we got our 5 stories. I know I went a little bit more in depth, but it's fucking Creepshow, right? And then we have the final stinger at the very end. We have 2, Romero regulars. We have Savini at the garbage truck, and the line that really cracked me up this time, when they're kind of looking in the garbage and they find the Creepshow book, and they're talking, and the one guy's like, it's a comic book, and they're wearing headphones, and he's like, what? It's a comic book. What? And then Savini's like, it's a comic book. That part, if you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Cracked me up. Hilarious. But yeah, that's just a perfect little stinger here. Oh, I got this pain in my neck. So anyways, as far as special features are concerned, which I didn't watch, which means I did a half-assed job here, we have a new 4K scan, approved by DP Michael Gornick, commentary by Gornick, new tear on the Three Rivers, a roundtable discussion with members of the cast and crew of Creepshow, new comic book look, an interview with costume designer Barbara Anderson, new Colors of Creepshow, a look at the restoration of Creepshow with Michael Gornick, audio commentary with director George Romero and special effects artist Tom Savini, audio interviews with Michael Gornick and John Apples, property master Bruce Allen Miller, and makeup effects assistant Daryl Feducci. Tom Savini's behind-the-scenes footage, Horror Hollow's grounds, a look at the original locations today, deleted scenes, theatrical trailer, TV spot, radio spot, still galleries, and more. And this bad boy has a little comic in there, I believe, as well, with Fluffy on there and all the characters of Creepshow. Michael Gingold? No, it's just a little book here. He's talking about a lot of stuff. I thought it might have been like a comic, kind of a little small comic adaptation. No, it's just a little book here anyways. But I can't sing the praises enough about Creepshow. George Romero, Stephen King, Tom Savini. Come on, guys. Okay, this next one here is the Patreon pick. And it was Jim Simon. He said, any Cronenberg movie you haven't covered on here yet. So I was looking over at my 4Ks, and I realized I had never seen Crash from 1996 by David Cronenberg. I know, this is bad. This is a lot of heavy hitters in here, right? So Crash. Cronenberg, one of the all-time great horror directors. Crash, not necessarily horror, but most certainly body horror. The cast in here is great. You got James Spader, Elias Cotes, Holly Hunter. There's other people that pop up in here as well. Boy, I don't know how to go about this. Crash is a movie that I probably should have watched 2 or 3 times before I talked about it. While I was watching it, I had a sense of uncomfortability and a sense of ultra respect for the actors involved. If we're looking at Elias Cotes, I knew was down. Because that guy is nuts. Like, not in real life, but like as far as his acting, like I just recently watched Desperate Hours, the remake, and he's in that. Him and David Morse steal the show over Anthony Hopkins and Make You Work for Me. They steal the show. And Elias Cotes is he's got a special quality about him, right? Even when I was a kid, I saw him as Casey Jones. He's the best part of that movie. I'm sorry, it just is. It's fucking Casey Jones. So I'm watching this. And so James Spader one day, him and his wife, they seem to fool around a lot, sleep around a lot. They seem to have an open relationship to a certain extent. They're into sexual things, a lot of sexual stuff. On the way home from work one day or wherever he's going, James Spader gets in a car accident. And the people he crashes into, one of which dies, a husband, they seem to have, some previous scars on them, like a car emblem or something like that embedded on his hand. Holly Hunter's the other person. And when he goes to the hospital, he starts to have maybe even a weird awakening when he has that accident with Holly Hunter, like a sexual awakening to an extent. And before long, he is introduced to this underground world of people that have a sexual obsession with car accidents. Rosetta Arquette's also in here. And I can't think of the actress who plays James Spader's wife. She's also excellent. So into this world of fucking fetishism, and it's so weird and bizarre, and Elias Cotes is kind of like the front runner of this. He's all scarred up, he's got a weird demeanor, he's got a beat up old nasty car, and as it goes on, it got more and more fucked up, more sexually explicit, and by the end of it, I was just like, you know what, I have an all new respect for James Spader and Elias Cotes. That was just a crazy role to do. And James Spader is, I always thought he was a good actor, from New Kids to Wolf to anything he's in, he's solid. Stargate. But this was an all-new, eye-opening experience. And seeing, Eliza Cotes, too, he's not your typical actor. He's, a handsome guy, but you don't really expect him to be, this, almost like this Marv from Sin City type-looking character and just, have this super, sexual prowess about him. It was kind of fucked up and disturbing the way the whole thing unfolded. And it's just uncomfortable as hell. And there's a scene in here where somebody's taking pictures of a car accident that 2 seconds of that scene is better than anything in Nightcrawler. I know people love Nightcrawler. I have my hang-ups on Nightcrawler, but the best scene is when he films the accident with Bill Paxton or whatever. That scene is probably the strongest. And I think this scene outdoes it. So, there's parts when they go down the whole, their obsession with these celebrity, car accidents, and they go down this whole list and stuff, and they talk about, I'll do so-and-so, and it's completely screwed up. And that scene where Elias Cotes registers what's happening, and he's filming it, and you see the glee in his eyes, it just was very disturbing. And they go places here that I would cross into the body horror category. A lot of these people have a lot of injuries, and sometimes scars and injuries can, be used for other things instead of, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, this is weird. This is nuts. I can't believe I hadn't seen this. It was one that I was saving for a long time. We'll watch again. We'll show other people to watch them watch it and just be like this. Huh? If that makes any sense. So the 4K looked fantastic. All the greens, there's a lot of shots. It looked so crisp. Looked fucking excellent. I just couldn't take my eyes off it for a lot of the film. There's tons of features on here. I didn't get a chance to pop them all in. I did listen to the Howard Shore special features. And when he goes in, Howard Shore, is longtime composer of David Cronenberg. Excellent. Did The Fly. Did so many good movies. I think he did The Brood too. I mean, He's one of the best when it comes to this shit. So he starts talking about everything that he did, and he made it a very, crazy, different, unique score, experimental. And you can tell, like, something was off. When I heard the score, and I don't mean that as a negative, it felt off. Like, it made me kind of like, oh, I don't feel good. Like, I feel off. It feels like the score is off. And I mean that as a compliment, because it fits the fucking movie. It's off. It's off, It's just not right. This isn't right. But it's a really excellent movie, and I suggest everybody checks out Crash. The 4K looks excellent from Arrow. All right, guys, we're going to hop into those 1980 movies.
They did this to you! They're trying to turn us against each other! Just look at them. What do they know about friendship, anyway? I'll get them. You watch. I'll take care of those sons of bitches.
Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Oh, good Lord. It's unbelievable. It's horrible. I can't understand the reason for such cruelty. It must have something to do with some obscure sexual rite or with the almost profound respect.
Getting very careless. Blood in your hair. What will we do? You want to look pretty, don't you? Pretty for me.
I can't believe you're not afraid.
All you have to do is piss on it.
Good at cat blood, ain't you? God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone. You'll never come back again. Oh, shut up, Ralph. It's got a death curse. Evil.
God, my leg! God, my leg!
I'm here. You're here. There's a fog bank out there.
Messenger of God. You're doomed if you stay here.
Demanding everything, including blood.
John, I want this material burned. All of it.
I ain't the crazy one. Remember?
In the lake, the one who attacked me, the one who pulled me underneath the water. And he's still there.
Used servitude.
I think you will all meet again. In hell!
I'd have mercy on his soul. He was one ruthless son of a bitch.
Wendy. Stay away! Darling, light of my life. I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Well, Dad, are you proud of me now? Do I measure up? Huh?
My son was a son of a bitch, and he was no good. That's it. My son is dead. I don't want to talk about him no more.
Oh, Cindy, you're gonna die.
Mater lacrimarum.
Ma'am,
Mater tenebrarum.
we didn't find any boy.
Mater suspiriorum.
You know as well as I do, it takes all kinds of critters
to make Farmer Vincent fritters.
I wonder who the real cannibals are.
All right, and the first one up is from the Tasso trilogy, and this is, boy, oh boy, if I can get it out of this box set. This is a Seijon Suzuki movie. I've covered one of the box sets he had before the Arrow put out, but this last one from 1980, bear with me, Zigeunerweisen, which is like, I believe in the film, it's actually an album, a German album that two characters listen to and share. This is going to be a difficult one to talk about, right? It is a Japanese film. It's 2 hours and 24 minutes. It's an epic. It's part of a trilogy. trilogy, and this is more of like a surreal, strange film. Now, it's listed as a horror film on certain places, like I think Letterboxd or Internet Movie Database. One of them listed as a horror film. The director obviously had name recognition with me. He's a cult director. He used to work for Nakatsu, not the erotic, but Nakatsu, and I was just like, oh, well, I know his films. I know that he has a reputation that's good, and this one sounds super interesting. It's an epic. It's long, like I said. It's beautiful to look at, and it follows a story of these kind of two professors, complete opposites, polar ends. One is just like this drifter who's weird and untrustworthy and dangerous and scary, and one is more like the uptight variety, but they kind of share like a love triangle at times, and it's just a weird movie. A lot of like stuff that doesn't logically make any sense, but it's like, surreal to the point where, a lot of the characters are standing on the bridge that have been an entire film watching fireworks while the other ones are walking, and it's just an uncomfortable, bizarre experience. Like, I don't know how to go about it. I don't even know how to review it. I don't even know what the hell to say. So like when I went to talk about this one, I was just like, I'm so lost with what to do on this. But then like you hear like the introduction, and the historians talk about the Tony Raines and talk about the stuff too, and you're just like, well, I'm not the only one. These are confusing, and they're meant to be that way. They have like themes and stuff that pop up, and you can correlate them together, to a certain extent. But as you go to talk about it as a whole, it's kind of like, I don't want to say David Lynch, because I feel like I could follow David Lynch easier because it's more westernized for me, at least to the point where it's in the right language, not right language, but the English. So I feel like a lot of that kind of translates a little better. But this one I thought was a very good looking movie. I thought it was very interesting. I thought that it had a wonderful, moments and creepy moments, but I don't know if I'd call it 100% a horror film. I'd call it absurdist. I'd call it surrealistic, and I'd call it different. I did like it. I just can't see myself revisiting this one too often, to be honest. So it's a bizarre film. I don't want to say the title again. Don't make me. You're not the boss of me. I'm not doing it. Zigeunerweisen. That's not right, but it is for today. Okay, the next one. Bear with me, because the weird, like all the different things in here, I want to make sure I get it right. It's Pepi, Luci, Bomb, and Other Girls Like Mom. And it has a different AKA title. So this is by Pedro Almodovar, and this isn't a horror film. This is listed as kind of like a comedy cult film. I think this is his first feature-length directorial film. And, I've seen a couple Pedro Almodovar movies. I've seen, of course, only the Skin I Live In, the one with Antonio Banderas, which is a really wild movie, and I would call more of a horror film for sure. And then it kind of like Eyes Without a Face kind of variety. So Pepi, this is a fucking weird movie. Within the first 5 minutes, it fits 1980s MO. Somebody gets raped, loses their virginity. So there's this awful police officer that spots some marijuana plants in this girl's window, goes across the street and says, hey, I want those windows down, rapes her in exchange so she won't be arrested. It's kind of played bit for comedy. Pedro Almodovar, he's a very transgressive filmmaker, very, queer friendly filmmaker. He's homosexual, and he or queer filmmaker. I don't know what exactly, but a lot of his films have these weird, crazy elements, and he always pushes the boundaries and brings up these questions where it's like a flirting of a line of art and exploitation. That's kind of his thing from what I've seen. And this one, no difference. It has like a super punk rock aesthetic. It has a wild kind of aesthetic and wild kind of tone and weird tone, and just all over the place. Anarchy tone, I would say, to a certain extent. So what happens is she wants revenge, so she has her punk rock band beat him up, but it's his twin brother, so it complicates things. Anyways, she starts to court, or starts to talk to, the police officer's wife, who is a masochist, and she ends up leaving her husband for them, which complicates matters. It gets weirder, it gets crazier. There's a dick measuring competition in the middle of this film. There's a lot of strange, weird, bizarre characters dancing and yelling and saying strange things and having these emotional stuff. The first, I'd say, half feels more in line with an exploitation cult film, while the second one's more like dramatic stuff, although there's some real uncomfortable stuff. I imagine that this is played at least for dark comedy will upset some people, but it was interesting. And like when we hit a year and it's like, okay, maybe you should watch like Private Eyes, the Don Knotts, or Tom Conway, whatever the comedy is, or something over that, or the Seven Mummy Whips or whatever. I'm like, well, you know what? I want to kind of hit up the Pedro Almodovar movie because, he's a director I should know more about. I should watch more, and it's his first film, and I think it hits in a place of more interest, even as a cult film, being in 1980 than those movies do. I'm sorry, but it's just truth, and I found it interesting enough. Now, it's completely bonkers, and it has that very good energy about it, kind of energy I enjoy. Like, it feels very punk rock. That's the only way I can explain it. And the last bad boy here from 1980 that I'll probably be covering besides those big 1980 I'll look into is Croaked Frog Monster from Hell, a.k.a. Rana, the Shadow of the Lake. So this is by director here, Bill Rebane. Now, you may recall Bill Rebane because he had a box set, Wild Wisconsin, and it covered like 8 of his films in there. You know, Croaked or Rana was not in said box set, which kind of a shame. A couple of them weren't. Capture of Bigfoot, Blood Harvest were not also in the box set. But I've seen so many Bill Rebane movies. I've seen like 9 Bill Rebane films, and this does not rank towards the top of his films. You know, I don't think so. I think Alpha Incident is his kind of shining star of his film career. I think that's actually genuinely a really good movie. So Rana, I feel like this kind of in line with some of his other films. A lot of his films. They don't stand out as well, you know, like they've released it around the time of the William Griffey set, and I feel like Griffey's films are a little bit more up my alley, but I will say Alpha Incident was quite good. So Rana, what we have here is a strange structural, again a weird structural kind of film, kind of like Night of the Demon from this year as well. So this is listed as 81 on Letterboxd. It's 1980 on Internet Movie Database for you guys to know. So it's kind of structural like Night of the Demon too, right? Where we have this character, even though that one's completely bonkers structure. So we have a guy. He's talking about the history of this place, and it goes to a flashback when he's a kid. And he starts talking about the history, yada, yada. What we find out is that he grew up around this lake, and there was a frog god named Rana. And this frog god caused a lot of problems for these kind of like weirdo poachers that were looking for this hidden gold, and this weird kind of hermit that's, you know, the red herring, and of course other people amongst them. This isn't exactly a great film. It's not the most fast-paced film. It's very dull, very talky until it hits a certain point. There's like a couple murders here and there. It's funny, you know, when you think back of all the Creature from the Black Lagoon ripoffs, not one has ever come close. Like, and you think of like a vampire film off Dracula or a Frankenstein film. It's like there's been good ones, or a werewolf film. There's been really genuinely great ones. Has there ever been a great Creature from the Black Lagoon inspired movie? I mean, there's inspirations are different, but one that's actually like a frog guy or an amphibious monster of sorts. I mean, Shape of Water, yes, but it doesn't really play like a Creature rip or anything like that. I mean, you have Demons of Paradise, you have so many of these ones, right? Like, and just none of them really ever hold up. The Man of War, Sting of Death, the Griffey movie. It's just funny. Like, so the Creature's got to be the cream of the crop. Oh, Humanoids from the Deep. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here talking about a 1980 movie that's not up to snuff with Creature from Black Lagoon, but then we have another Creature kind of rip off Humanoids from the Deep, which I absolutely adore. So hey, I'm wrong here, but like it's so like weird how little cool amphibious horror movies there actually are when there should be a slew of them. And Rana is, you know, I'm sorry, I don't have much to say about it. It's boring. The suit is not great. There's a point towards the end where he actually attacks and some fingers get chopped off. That's entertaining, but a lot of it is just, you know, walking around a swamp. This one guy taking pot shots at some guys that shouldn't be there, and everyone's just rather lame and unpleasant. I'm sorry, it's just not much to say. It's not very interesting for me. It's not Bill Rebane's best. It's not an amphibious monster movie best. It's not 1980s best. It's the last one I'm watching, probably, most likely. Maybe not, who knows. I have no idea when the 22-shot show's going up. It could be a month from now, 3 months from now, whatever. But Rana, the Shadow of the Lake, a.k.a. Croaked Monster from Hell, is not worth your time for me. I would say a no. That's a no for me, dog, on Rana. Okay, so yeah. All right, we're here for the third or fourth movie in the Universal slot. Fourth, technically third installment, and this is 1925's Phantom of the Opera, starring Lon Chaney Sr. Mary something is the actress in this. She's going to be in the next 2 movies. I believe she's in The Cat and the Canary and The Man Who Laughs, so that's cool. This is directed by, I can't think of his name, but he did direct The Cat Creeps, which is a lost film from 1920, which was initially on the list. Could not find it. Obviously, it's a lost film. And you might recognize some faces in this one. I didn't even notice that basically the heroic type is Phoebus from Hunchback.
Yeah.
Same. I didn't even register that. I don't know why. So yeah, this is the classic story based off the novel, and it's fairly close to the novel. You know, it's not too far off. My problem with this was I kept waiting for like beats to happen from other Phantom adaptations I saw that weren't there. I'm like, where's the homeless guy and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, I'm just mixing up all these different adaptations of it. The star of the movie, the stage is great, and of course, you know, it's very fast paced, and Lon Chaney Sr. steals the show again, as he does, and there's the obvious, very memorable reveal, which happened much sooner than I expected while watching this. You got anything else to say? Or anything to say at all?
Well, I mean, you know, it's Phantom of the Opera. I think I've seen like 4 or 5 different versions of this film.
Quite a bit.
You know, pretty straightforward. I feel like most Phantom stories are. Sometimes they teeter like, is the Phantom a good guy? Like in the Hammer ones, is he just a psychopath like in the book? And some would say the musical.
This one, he was disfigured. Sorry, but I always remembered him getting disfigured because of someone else. But that's strictly from the Hammer one and Phantom of Paradise, right?
I think that is the Phantom, the Hammer Phantom.
Yeah. And Paradise.
And Paradise.
And maybe Eric's Revenge.
Most of the stuff I've seen is, he's just born a freak. And it's been such a long time since I've read the book. And I think he's born a freak.
So
it could be wrong. But like I said, I've seen probably upwards of like 6 or 7 different Phantom movies over the past 30 years. So it's like, I don't know how the Phantom came about. I forget.
So the one part I was very impressed with was how it opened up with the actual selling of the theater, just like in the book.
Yeah.
And they make the joke like, don't Opera Box 5, don't use it. They're like, what? Like, no, don't use it. Like they go in there and genuinely see the shadowy figure, and they come back and he's gone. For 1925, that was obviously a great scare. It was a good setup. Mm-hmm. There's like 2 or 3, I'd say, like really great. Well, 4 scenes with Lon Chaney Sr. that are really top notch. Of course, the reveal, and when he's wearing his like get up, his weird mask, it looks straight up from Mad Love, but which was a few years later, like 5 years later. But I guess this wasn't released until theaters or whatever wide until 1930. I'm not sure how that works. So very close, much closer to Mad Love. I think Mad Love is 32, if I'm not mistaken, 33, somewhere around there. So like that part's great. The reveal, the ball is great.
The ball is fantastic.
That's added in when he's on the statue.
When he's on the statue is just a neat image.
And the last is him in the water. I thought was really unique and didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to use the traps in the movie because they don't always use the traps like they should from the book.
No, actually, the whole going down into his lair and like having to like solve each of the different traps, I thought was really cool.
Very close to the book. This is the most faithful adaptation I've seen, to be honest. And the Hunchback was fairly faithful as well. These are just like, it's almost weird. It's almost like the, like instead of like reading like the little like cliff notes from a book, you just would watch this and you would get kind of a lot of it.
Well, Hunchback I think does miss.
It misses a lot. This one I meant on this one is the cliff notes.
This one I think is maybe a bit more faithful, but I'd say that most of the Phantom movies tend to be a bit faithful. But there isn't a whole lot.
You've never seen Eric, Phantom of the Mall.
I have seen Phantom of the Mall actually.
Did I make you watch
it's where they're going to build the mall in the suburbs, and I think they're going to take Eric's house or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And they burn the house down, and Eric gets disfigured, and then 5 years later they build the mall, and his ex-girlfriend's there, and it's like, it's Eric, I love him. And
you watched it while I was watching it, so you were in and out, but you got the gist of Phantom of the Mall. Eric's
because
Revenge.
Is that not just the plot of every Phantom Redux? There's the Phantom of the Megaplex, Phantom of the Megaplex of Mickey Rooney.
I've never
That's
seen
a
that
Disney
one.
original.
Oh, there's the Phantom of Hollywood too, from the Warner Brothers release, which I've never got to see. So there's a lot of good Phantoms.
There's a Phantom in everything. Phantom Paradise obviously is a very fun one. Then you got the stage production and its sequel.
Which might come up at one point.
It might.
I mean, it is a silent movie. So it's like, again, hard to judge silent films. And I enjoyed it. It was fairly fast-paced. Although it did get repetitive towards the end of the film. I felt like they kept hitting the same beats over, especially the chase.
Yeah.
But it is a very iconic scene, I think, when the people are so afraid of the Phantom that he goes to pull something out to scare them away, and they think it's like this weapon or something. And it's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's just, he like... It's just crazy. And I didn't really know how this was going to end. Like, I didn't think he was going to die like that. I know we're spoiling these, but I didn't think he was just going to be beat to death by a mob.
Usually, be Rasputin.
Yes, the monster is like run off a cliff and falls in the water, or knocked off a building, or set ablaze in a building. They didn't usually like rip him apart like he's Mussolini.
Right. And then threw him in the river, and and then he comes back as Vincent Price later on.
As 5.
But no, I mean, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. I think that Lon Chaney looks amazing. I wasn't a big fan of his mask, though. I thought it just looked kind of weird.
It looked like Dr. What the fuck? David Gale, Dr. Hill, when he has like the thing carrying it in Reanimator. Also the same for Mad Love. It's all very similar.
It was just weird because it was like
It's one of those like
it's a very,
dummies they use for surgery.
Yeah, it's a very normal looking face, like it's like a porcelain or something, like still at the upper half, and then like when it gets down to the mouth, it's like a piece of fabric. It's kind of weird.
I think what I like is the look of this Phantom, his face, but the mask of the one from the 40s, which we'll be watching. So I think that's kind of like what's become like the rendition of the Phantom is this face of Lon Chaney Sr. And the mask of the other Phantom is how I had always picture him.
No, I don't know what the other mask.
It's the white mask.
So the one that like is like in the musical.
Everything else.
Which, and I would say that the Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical does use more of the Chaney face with the.
Does it actually have the Chaney face? Cause
very close. I mean, as much as they can do on stage.
The nose. Oh, the stage play, not the Joel Schumacher one, which I forced to turn off. I couldn't watch that.
Yeah, so when I make reference to like the musical Phantom of the Opera, I really am talking about the stage production. Yeah, there is a film adaptation of that production that Joel Schumacher made. Love it or hate it, it is what it is. I mean, most musical adaptations or most film adaptations of a musicals, they're very hit or miss because every couple of years they change the musical around and they add this scene and take this scene out, and the film version then tends to take 20 years of a show's production history and make like the definitive ultimate edition, and they cast a bunch of stars because that's the only way they're going to sell tickets, and you end up with cats,
or Stomp or Clomp or some other piece of crap.
So
that's Simpsons quote. Anyways, this is the edition we watched, but there was like several versions with several different soundtracks. So we watched the first disc with the original music composed performed by Ally Orchestra, which was made way down the line. So there's two different like possible ways to listen to this, and we didn't watch the original 25 setting, which is wrong. We watched the kind of remastered, partially colored version, and all this other kind of stuff. We watched the version that we believe is most preferred. Hopefully we were right.
No, we watched cheating. The first one on the disc.
The way they present it on Kino is the first disc.
Okay.
And usually you'd put the most preferred version on there. I don't know the details, and it would take a lot of time. So usually, like, that's the one I think it was presented in 1930 with the ball scene and all that kind of stuff. And the ball scene, like when you see Phantom action figures, it's usually the Lon Chaney Sr. one without the mask, or it's either the ball one when the red. And I've seen both figures. They released a set, like all these Universal sets, and they was like different series, and they had both different series. I think they had different Phantoms as well. That's very cool. Like I said, Lon Chaney Sr. was clearly the king of this kind of stuff, and I could not start the Universal movies out without having Lon Chaney Sr. because, like, without Lon Chaney Sr., there's nothing. Like, really, when it comes to that kind of stuff, there's not anything. Like, special effects in general, right? Like, would you say he's the most important person when it comes to monster makeup effects of all time?
I don't know about all time, but he definitely does, like, start, I think, that movement.
Not special effects and makeup, I mean.
Yeah. I think his stuff is fantastic. It's a shame that most of it is missing and gone and destroyed.
Well, London After Midnight's the big one, right?
You'll never see those. It's weird lost media. Like, we lose our shit trying to remember commercials and pilot episodes
all that
from
shit's
the 80s.
Recorded somewhere though, because people recorded everything.
But here you have
classic pieces of cinema. Japan lost like all their shit.
Oh yeah, for like the first 3 decades of film, like that stuff's gone. Like you ain't ever getting it.
And
back.
You go back when Germany bombed Britain, how much art and shit was lost during there. That's never coming back. That's gone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That shit's gone. Like books, literature, all that kind of manuscripts.
I think in the special features of Hunchback, they like sold the film for like that copper plating or something in it. To get like $7 out of it.
And you got to remember, fucking pieces of the Bible are gone.
Right.
Original scripture is gone.
Everything's gone.
Like,
Nothing's permanent.
So,
like we're just like gone in a blink. Like thank God I don't want to be around here anymore.
Hey. Anyways, I thought it was a really solid movie. Obviously, what can I say about it? This one's
it's Phantom of the Opera.
3.5 out of 5, only for the setbacks of it. Being like, but I don't even know how to rate these. Like I said, I prefer Hunchback just by a little bit. Because it's more epic, and I think it was just a bigger set pieces. It was a little more impressive. But I think I like the look of the Phantom better than the look of the Hunchback.
I think I prefer this one over the Hunchback.
I think Hunchback's a better movie. I'd rather watch the Phantom again.
Whatever I rated Hunchback, I rate this. Was that like a 4?
3.5, 4, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
right?
this is fine. It's fine.
John Stanley, it's good. It's better than fine. John Stanley's Creature Features, Phantom of the Opera, 1925, 3 out of 5. Appreciation for the silent screen helps, but isn't mandatory for enjoying this oldie with makeup genius Lon Chaney as an acid-scarred madman living beneath the Paris Opera House, who frightens the sopranos out of their tenors. Based on Gaston Leroux novel, this universal classic has marvelous makeup and imagery that would inspire filmmakers for decades. Despite outdated acting techniques and staginess, this is a must-see. Directed by Rupert Julian, Mary Philbin, Norman Carey, re-released in 1930 with sound. There we go. That's different. So the 30s version has sound. Kino video yesteryear. Yes, there we go. There's also a 1943 version. And then we have a 1962 version. Then we have an 83 version, an 89 version, a 1990 version. And then we have Phantom of the Paradise from 74, Phantom of the Ritz, 88. And what's this movie? Phantom 2040, The Ghost Who Walks. This is not related, but I think it's very fun.
I mean, you know, I think Phantom is one of the most
adapted.
Yeah, I don't say overplayed. I was looking through the book. I'm allowed to peruse
James O'Neill's Tear on Tape.
Tear on Tape. Here's the.
This is a lengthy review.
Available
so just read
on
the
Amazon.
Fucking thing.
Okay.
It probably is used. Because that book's falling apart.
The Phantom of the Opera. I'm sorry, Phantom of the Opera, the. 3.5 out of 4 stars. Good times, 1925. NR, 75 minutes.
Don't read all that shit.
Don't tell me what to read.
Okay, Good times.
All
is
right.
really bad VHS company. They were
Oh, okay.
SLP mode and shit.
So this is like an inflated review, because I already read it. The first and best movie version of the classic Gaston Leroux tale is also one of the best silent horror films ever made. Chaney is unforgettable as the skull-faced Eric, who courts a lovely young singer at the Paris Opera House from behind a blank mask, only becoming a monster when rejection and the hatred of others drive him to it. Chaney directed many of his own scenes, and most leave an everlasting impression. His gliding into a masked ball as Poe's Red Death, the abduction of heroine Philbin through the glistening black catacombs beneath the opera house, and of course, the famous unmasking, which, believe it or not, still packs a jolt today. It does. If Chaney had made only one movie in his career to be remembered for, this would have been it. Some scenes were originally shown in an early Technicolor process, and the film was also reissued in a part-talkie version. It was remade in 1943, 1962, 1983, 1989, 1990, and as both the Phantom of Hollywood and the Phantom of Paradise. Not to mention Andrew Lloyd What's-His-Name's, it's Andrew Lloyd Webber's overpraised Broadway musical version.
That's why you're mad about that review. Also, I don't know why I never put 2 and 2 together. The fucking Red Skull is just the Phantom of the Opera's face.
What do you mean?
The Red Skull's face is just the Phantom of the Opera. Like, it's 100% his nose, his structure.
I mean, the skull's a skull.
Nah, but the way it is with the nose and still the amount of flesh on there. The Phantom of the Opera and Red Skull, look, they're the same.
Wait, so is Red Skull, does he have flesh, or is it just a red skull?
I don't think it's a skull. I think it's his skin has been seared and scarred into a boiling thing of grossness. I don't know. The Russians did it to him. They turned him red. I don't fucking know.
I don't know anything about the Red Skull.
No, I know he got burned, and he's disfigured like every classic fucking old Marvel villain.
I
Dr.
think he
Doom.
opened the Ark of the Covenant or something. And,
he was there in Indiana
He
Jones.
shut it real quick.
He's like, he didn't melt. He didn't melt enough. Like, what is that? Is it the guy who melts? Isn't he the guy in Willy Wonka? The guy who's like the weird nerdy guy? I don't remember.
He like put sunscreen on right when they opened it
like,
up. And it's like, oh, I only got
he had
partially
like sunblock
melted.
on there.
Right. Now I'm going to kill America.
I don't like that they didn't have the Opera Ghost sign OG like he used to in the book. Opera Ghost, original gangster. There we go. Next week is the 1927 version of Cat and the Canary. Which
Never heard of it.
It's been remade a couple times, one of which I think from 39 is lost. So we're not going to be watching that one, but we'll be watching the 1927 version. 1927. And I don't remember if this was the one my grandpa saw. I know there's a couple versions, but he swore that this thing was scary as hell, even though this one's listed as a comedy. But hey, he was old. His favorite was the Wolfman.
I mean, I think Wolfman is a classic. I think
the Wolfman's one of the best. And when we do the end, the ranks, Wolfman's going to be in my top 5. I
know we have to rank these?
We're going to have to pick our top 10 like we did the Hammer.
I have to fucking pay attention?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though...
Hey, remember we're supposed to do the top 10 of, like, whatever...
No, I don't. I don't remember that at all.
You don't. That never happened.
No idea.
Yeah.
We might take a little break, just to watch a couple other like Halloween movies. I want to watch The Haunting, which is a huge blind spot. Probably I think the worst blind spot I have left, as far as like classic horror movies are concerned. Besides some of the Universal titles.
What's The Haunting?
It's the classic 1960s ghost story. It's like the benchmark for all ghost stories. Richard Johnson's in it. All right, you're terrible. He's from Zombie. The boat can leave now. He's Menard in Zombie. You know who Zombie is. You know the actors in Zombie. You don't know anybody from anything else. That's like... All right, well, we're done. You got anything else to say?
No, I never had anything to say a day in my life.
All right, that sounds good.
Bye.
I like that. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, concerns. I do not have a question of the week this week, and I only have a few comments, so it shouldn't take long. T.S. I remember long black-haired Parka. Been here since the beginning. Thank you. Well, now I'm short gray-haired Parka. Jason Bovey was so surprised you had such a visceral reaction to Star 80, given the kind of flicks you gravitate to. I always thought it was a fantastic movie, with Eric Roberts' performance easily one of the best he's given, 9 out of 10. Yeah, it just must have been in my mind state and just the way how the realism hit. I am the Ice Lord. Excellent stuff. Always a great time watching these videos. Keep me up to date on what to pick up. Now, I don't get everything anymore. You know, like I said, I've been cutting back, so there's some other sources out there that you might want to check out and everything like that, so... Movie Junkie reviews. The Dorothy Stratton story was okay as a TV movie. Feels like Jamie Lee Curtis was miscast, though. She tried to work with what she was given. I give the edge to Star 80, though. Horror Cinema. I've always liked Star 80, and yes, it's very disturbing to watch. I always catch myself with a cringe look on my face when I watch it. Mariel Hemingway is the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway. I thought there was a relation. I wasn't sure how close it was. So let's get into this update. It's a decent update. It's my Vinegar Syndrome stuff came in, and I actually have not even opened the box. So I know people love when people just open box on camera, but I don't really do that because, hey, it is what it is. Okay, let's hop into this update. First up, the Amityville Horror. That's right. Directed by, who is it? Stu Rosenberg, who did Cool Hand Luke. It's got James Brolin in it, Rudd Steiger, and Margaret Kidder. All great actors. Yeah, this movie, this is the 4K. I've only seen this movie one time, believe it or not. And I enjoy it, you know. Definitely rewatch it in 4K. That opening with the house and the fall weather would be pretty damn cool. So, yeah. Anyways, no problems having Amityville Horror on 4K, no doubt. And then what do we have next? The Iceman Cometh, which I believe is a Hong Kong flick. The name I know. I'm not too familiar with it. Maggie Chen is having kind of a resurgence lately, which is cool, I believe. So, yeah, this looks cool. Always welcome Hong Kong and Chinese films on Blu-ray and 4K. So, always very excited to see that. I'm sure this is a very entertaining movie. There's lots of cool stuff over there that has not got a good release here yet. Mutant Hunt. Boy, oh boy, we're talking about Mutant Hunt. Fun fact, one of the first things I ever put on my channel was a trailer for Mutant Hunt. Still there. This movie's nonsense. I've seen the old... I think I saw this on VHS originally, but I remember having the DVD that Full Moon put out, which was just a VHS rip. So this movie's bonkers. Tim Kincaid, I believe, did Breeders and Robot Holocaust. Both ridiculous movies in true Tim Kincaid fashion. Next up, we have Buried Alive. That's right. Now, there's like two movies around this time called Buried Alive. But this is, who did this one? I mean, like, one has Robert Vaughn and one has Donald Pleasance, and I get confused. Oh, Robert Vaughn and Donald Pleasance are both in this one. The other one must have Herbert Lom. See, like, very confusing here. Is this the one that has the sequel? Is this the one without the sequel? Anyways, I'm sure it will all come out in the wash, right? I'm sure somebody knows. This guy don't know. This guy don't know at all. So then next up, we have... the Vinegar Syndrome Archive, Red Sun Rising with Don the Dragon Wilson. I like these Vinegar Syndrome Archive covers. Frickin' Michael Ironside back there looking like a 90s goon. That's best Ironside, 90s goon Ironside. So yeah, looks fun, looks entertaining, looks probably absolutely ridiculous. A lot of these like action movies from the 90s, like the early 90s, late 80s, I definitely rented as a kid or saw on television. I used to watch all that shit, loved it. So we have the Fun City here. We have Married to the Mob. Jonathan Demme movie. Looks like Dean Stockwell on the back there. Fun City. Yeah, there we go. I'm not too familiar with this movie, but Fun City always does good work, so I definitely want to support them. I still need to watch their last release. I hear very good things about it. But we have Culture Shock here. Devil Rider, which I think is from 91, which I missed for 1991. I don't know anything about this movie, so I saw this and I was like, what is this, man? I don't really know this. If I saw the title, that's basically it. You got a skeleton on the back. This looks weird and cheap. Original VHS cut of Devil Rider. So, yeah. He kills for the thrill. That's a great tagline, guys. Must have took all night on that one. So yeah, anyways, looks fun. Next up, Scooter McRae's 16 Tongues, director of Shattered Dead. This is a weird and wild movie. You know, Scooter McRae's movies are very bizarre, and he only did the 2 films. I was hoping he'd get more. Maybe after both these movies are released, we'll see some more films by him. But both interesting. Shattered Dead is one of my favorites, if not my favorite SOB, so maybe besides Bloodletting and maybe Redneck Zombies, those are all top notch for me. We have KFC. Now, this sounded really disgusting and weird, and I do not know what the hell to think of it. Like, reading the plot, this is from the Decalogue, and I was just like, oh, no, I have to have this. This just looks like it's just made for insanity. Like, I have no idea. Yeah, only extreme fans of extreme cinema need apply. Jeez, birth, movies, death. So maybe I'll watch this. Maybe I'll watch this tonight. Make myself sick before I leave for Wasteland. Viva Erotica. Now, this is a Hong Kong flick, and this is, who did this one? I can't think. A Cat 3 title, though, so I think this is more of like a love story, weird story here. And what is that company? Kana did this one, so this is limited. And, I collect the Cat 3 titles, so... Oh, that's a familiar face. I've seen this guy in a bunch of the stuff I watched for 91 and 94. I can't think of his name, though. But anyways, yeah, this is 1997. This is towards the end. The Hong Kong kind of run like that of crazy movies. So, yeah, that's all I have. Next week will be Wasteland's update. And now, don't expect too much. I had only really assumed like 2 or 3 titles. I'm going to go quality over quantity. Like I said, got to save money. So, anyways, I'm out. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.